What's doing, everybody? I'm Alec. Thank you for watching First Class Fatherhood. Today's guest on the podcast is the star of CBS's SWAT, Kenny Johnson. Kenny also starred on some smash hit TV series such as The Shield and Sons of Anarchy. It's a real pleasure to have him here with me today, so smack that subscribe button down below, and let's jump into it right now with actor Kenny Johnson on First Class Fatherhood. Joining me now, First Class Father, Kenny Johnson. Welcome to First Class Fatherhood.
Thanks for having me, man. It's my pleasure. Love it.
All right, let's start here. How many kids you got? How old?
I have one, and she just turned 11 2 weeks ago. So she's like, she's an awesome kid. She just got a little taller than her mom, so she's really tall for her age. And yeah, man, she's just I couldn't even say enough words that can describe what an insanely cool girl she is. And I felt that from the day she came out of her mom's belly to 11 years old. I've never had a bad moment with her, man. So it's been just the biggest blessing for me. Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. What type of sports or activities is she into?
She's into acting. She likes to act. She's done like 21 musicals. She's been in 3 films. She's reoccurring on a TV show. So she's into that. I got her into volleyball and soccer. I coached her in soccer a couple of years. She didn't like sports when she was young. So I was devastated because my whole thing was, sports through high school. Then I played college and baseball and football and went on to arm wrestle and became a, world champion. So I just love sports, period. And she hated it. And I was so bummed. I'm like, oh, my God. So whatever she liked, I just embraced and kind of went with it and supported her in it. But I got her into volleyball this year through a friend of mine that, played down at San Diego State, and he was like a big stud down there. And she came in and absolutely fell in love with the sport. So we go in the backyard, we have a huge a dining area that has got a big ceiling. So we're constantly playing in the living room. And then I get her to throw the football with me every day and the softball. And then we shoot baskets in the backyard. So,
Yeah, good stuff. Yeah, that's one of those things, like for myself, I never could have pictured myself playing chess. If you would have told me 10 years ago I'd be playing chess, I'd say, get the hell out of here. But my oldest son became interested at a young age. So it's one of those things, I learned it so I could play with him. And now we love it. Everybody in the family plays. So you never know what direction they're going to take you sometimes,
Yeah, exactly. Just go with it. And, yeah.
If you could, Kenny, here, just take a minute to hit my listeners with a little bit about your background and what you do.
Oh, okay. I'm an actor out here in Los Angeles. I'm from Vermont originally. Went to college in Connecticut. Accidentally got into acting around 24, and I've started out on the series Pensacola Wings of Gold. Did the movie Blade, Major League 3. I did a TV series called The Shield on FX, and then Saving Grace with Holly Hunter, and then I think I went to Sons of Anarchy. Which was a pretty badass, awesome experience. And then Prime Suspect with Maria Bello, and then Bates Motel with Vera Farmiga and Freddie Highmore, and then Secrets and Lies with Michael Ealy and Juliette Lewis. And now I'm doing SWAT with Shemar, Mother effing Moore, he calls himself. So, and a whole bunch of great guys. So I'm in the middle of that right now.
Yeah, what an incredible resume you have there, Kenny. And along this journey here then, I know you said your daughter's 11, so about how old were you then when you first became a dad, and how did becoming a dad change your perspective on life?
Oh, it was like, I never lived with a girl, and so I thought, unless it's the right one, I'm never going to get married. And I thought it was, kind of past, and I did a movie on the other side of the world and met this girl. It was on her birthday, first day of shooting. She told me it was her birthday, and I'm like, oh, okay. And so she asked me to come out with her and her girlfriend. So we did, shot the movie. She was in it, had a small part, and then came back to LA. She was from Canada. I was from down here. And she just said, I'd love to come to LA and just hang out for a couple of weeks. And so that came about, and then she just never kind of left, and it felt right to me. So I just went with the flow, and eventually we got married. And then at one point I came home I was shooting on, I forget which series at the time, but I remember something inside of me said it's time. And I went home, and I remember I said, you know what? And she knew what I was talking about for whatever reason. I think that night she was conceived, and I had seen her in my dreams that I was going to have a girl, and she came out, but I mean, she got pregnant. I fell in love with the fact that she was in my wife's belly. I fell in love with this relationship I had with this girl inside of my wife. And then when she came out, it was I'd always been afraid to even hold a baby, but when Angelica came out, Angelica Scarlett Johnson, and we nicknamed her Jelly. I just remember, instead of feeling like afraid to hold this little baby, it was almost like I became this I don't know, man, like I felt like I was a gorilla, and I lifted her up with one hand and felt this such a protective thing, like I'm gonna protect this little child for the rest of my life. She's my baby. And I never had a fear of, holding a baby or that I was going to hurt her. So from that moment on, it was just basically you go into this mode where every day and every moment is something, like the first 3 months, we barely slept. I was working, at the same time. And it was just bliss, man. I was like this in the ethers in a way, and kind of didn't sleep a lot, did probably some of my best acting because I was so tired and not in my head. Everyone kept saying, like, man, I've never seen you like, this good. And I'm thinking, like, I don't even know what's going on, man, because I was just trying to survive on fumes. And then, from that moment on, just everything was brand new for me. In my experience, they always talked about the terrible twos or whatever you have. Never had a bad anything with my little girl. It's just been like as much love, I think, as you can put into your children. Something good's going to come out of it. And I learned that from watching Michael Chiklis raise his daughters when we were doing The Shield. I watched him as a dad, and he was like a super dad, man. He was like the lead of a show, but he would be at every event. Me and Walton Goggins and Michael Chiklis would go to all of his daughters' events, and I just saw how much unconditional love he gave to his daughters and how much his daughters loved him and loved their mom. And I just tried to learn from that, and then kind of do the same thing with my girls. Or my girl, my girls. Yeah, I got one.
Yeah, very, very well said. And I understand that too. Like, I had nephew and nieces before becoming a dad. My wife didn't, and she had that same feeling of like she didn't know if she was ever going to be able to hold a baby correctly. She thought she'd be uncomfortable and everything. And we kind of laugh at that now, looking back, and like how you were afraid going in, and now you're like this super mom, and you handle it with such ease. And so it's definitely a transition that takes place. And one of the things that's been difficult for me, and I'm still learning on the job here, so to speak, is because I had my 3 boys first and then got my girl on the end, is the way that I discipline my boys is definitely different than the way I'm disciplining my daughter. So what type of disciplinarian are you as a dad, and is it different than the discipline style that you grew up with?
Yeah, my dad was like from Sweden. He was a big Swedish guy, about 270, 6'2", and the Swedish guys are strict as can be, man. His dad on him, it was very very aggressive, and I kind of, it was my dad did a lot of like the hitting, the belt, he didn't have a lot of love for me, especially. He liked my sisters, but he didn't really like me. And so I kind of got this complex where I thought, what if I become a dad and do the same thing or feel the same way towards my kid? Because I didn't really like myself for a long time, and I had to go through a lot of issues to overcome that. But I thought, if I ever have a child, I do not want to be like that. I want to, so I think I had done a lot of work on, changing that aspect of it. So I just wanted to give her everything kind of my dad really kind of wasn't allowed, or didn't have the capacity to do. And my mom was just very quiet. She was a loving, great woman, but she never really spoke to us and talked very much. So it was all about, making sure we were fed and our clothes were clean and everything like that. But it was different. So I just wanted to be more hands-on about just, giving love and showing by an example and kind of embracing her. And instead of like punishing her for things, to talk to her about it. So I explained things. So I've actually think she's might have been grounded once in her life, and that wasn't by me. It was by her mom, because she's just a good kid, man. She doesn't have a bad bone in her body. And I don't know if that's, I don't know, just a rare thing, but for whatever reason, I've been really blessed with that. But I will definitely speak up and set boundaries and tell her right from wrong if there's something that comes up, but I'm not one of these, like, I'm going to punish her, but I do know being with boys, very different because their energy is bouncing all over the place and they're a little crazy. And I think I was crazy as a kid. So I can understand maybe why I got in trouble, a lot. And you have 3 boys. So how do you manage that? Like, how do you manage that? Because that's,
yeah, you know what it is? They all need a different style of finesse when it comes to disciplining them. Because I have one child, I mean, you could spank him all day and night, and it ain't going to make an effect. One kid, you could threaten to spank him, and he'll change automatically. So it's like
right.
one of those things where one kid won't find out the stove is hot, no matter how many times you tell him, until he touches it and burns himself. So you have to, you have to try to, kind of play to their strengths, and it's a learning process. It really is. So and it's
yeah.
It's been, and like just how you said there, I think dads have definitely evolved over time. My father, he was born in 1930, so he grew up in that Depression era, and his style of discipline that he grew up with his father was far different than anything that I would have faced even from him. And it's gotten softer, I think, to say down the way, because I couldn't imagine being the disciplinarian that my father was, and I definitely have crushed the amount of times I've told my kids that I love them. So far in the game. So it's definitely, I think it's good and there's bad, I think, from both sides of it. I think some of that stern discipline is beneficial, but then when it goes overboard, I think it does more harm than good. So it's definitely a balance that has to be found in the discipline style. That's why I always love to hear the different philosophies of discipline styles from the different dads.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. It's like the amount of love that you put in or what energy you put into a child, I think, is going to reflect. I mean, you hope it's going to reflect back in some way. And I know, like, my dad never told me he loved me ever until the day he divorced my mom. And I remember coming home from college and he was following me around the house, and he's, always had this weird relationship. And I kept thinking, what's going on? Like, he's following me. And then before I left to go back to California, or not California, but no, I was out of college. So no, I come back from California to Vermont, and I remember weirdly following me. And then all of a sudden, right before I left, he just said, I love you. But he kind of did it in a mumbled way. And then he never spoke to me for the next 15 years. Like, just cut off he divorced my mom and then cut off everything with me. So it was weird, like, because he never said it. My mom, I knew, loved me, and but I don't think, she verbally said it a lot. So I wanted to make sure that, because of the way I maybe felt about myself because of it, I didn't want my daughter to feel that way. So I definitely, like, let her know, like you say, all the time, and she comes out of her room like every 5 minutes. She's like, I love you. And I'm always like, I love you. It's just like all day long. She's like, no matter what she does, she stops, she runs out. She goes, I love you. And then I'm always, I got to say it back. Because if I don't, she runs in the room. She's like, I love you. And I'm like, I love you, So it's just like pretty wild, man. I mean, it really is.
Yeah, it's definitely drastically different. One of the other things too, like, I could never imagine my father, let alone, saying that I love you. I could never imagine him apologizing for anything that he ever did. Even if he punished me for something my brother did, like, he would,
Right.
I find myself doing that, especially when I punish the wrong kid for the wrong reason, and then I find out I made the mistake. Like,
right.
I own it, and I tell him that I'm sorry, and that's something too, I think that's evolved in parenting over the years here. And with your daughter here, what are the top values that you're hoping to instill in her?
Oh man, just honesty, really. Honesty, and kind of, to kind of trust herself, like, and not try to conform to other kids and try to fit into a clique or a group, or, just to kind of trust who she is and to know she's enough. Like, she's perfect the way she is. And there's going to be people who will like you and don't like you in life. And that's okay. But just honor yourself. Like, so I'm always, just be honest, be truthful. At the same time, don't try to be somebody that you're not, to try to fit in with other people, because, I for some reason, that was just an innate thing with me in life. And I always was anti-cliques and anti-groups. And I felt it through school, felt it through high school. And I was alone a lot because of it. And it was like okay with me, because for some reason, my instincts kept saying, this isn't real. This is kind of like, kind of mean, towards other kids. And I see what people do and say, and I could get along with everyone, but I refuse to conform to like cliques or groups to try to fit in or feel good about myself. I just, so I just try to instill in her that she's great at who she is, and the right people will come around and surround her, and she'll just have a natural, connection with them, and she'll know it when it happens, like it's amazing how she's around adults, and every adult in, like, that I'm around, or that is in anything, she carries herself like she's an old soul, and she's so respectful, and she has these conversations with people, and is never embarrassed or afraid or fearless. She just is who she is, and never feels funny about it. And I love that about her, because a lot of other kids might, think like, oh, I'm a kid, I'm not supposed to talk to her adults, or that I don't really have a connection with them. But she's almost like ageless when it comes to the way she carries herself with other people. And she's had that since she was like 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now she's 11. And I love that she's not conscious or aware of like herself. Like, a lot of kids go through this very judgmental thing about themselves, and she's doesn't have that. And I really hope that she stays that way.
Yeah, that's good stuff, Kenny, too. Especially it's important because right now, communication skills, they've broken down a little bit because of all this technology, just the way that, especially I drive Uber on the weekends, and I see it from like the college kids. They communicate by Snapchatting each other in the same vehicle, so
Yeah.
It's like the way that they communicate, and especially now that handshaking has gone out the window,
Yeah.
it's going to be interesting to see even how much further down the rabbit hole we go with as far as eye to eye communication and being able to hold a conversation. So we'll see how that goes. And transitioning it back into what you do here, the way that we consume movies right now and our videos has completely changed from years ago. Now everything is, especially when you do Netflix, Hulu, all the streaming services and devices. So I don't know if it's easier now or harder to get into the business. What kind of advice do you have for a parent out there that does have a child that's hoping to become an actor or wants to pursue acting as a career?
Before the virus, I would have a lot to say about that. Right now, I don't even, I mean, no matter what you want to do in life, you got to follow that passion. Somehow, like, we're going to go back to shooting SWAT season 4. They want to try late July. They're going to have a lot of social distancing, wearing masks, getting tested before you come onto the set, being further away when we shoot, like with the blocking is going to be different. Everyone's going to have masks and deal with everything very differently. And then we're going to shoot with less cameras, less crew, and do it from a distance, and then have like close-ups. Like if you have a medium shot from a ways away, they can edit that into a close-up in the when they edit it together. So it's a challenge for them. So it's interesting to see how they're going to go about it. But I mean, for me as an actor, I'm like, truly, if you feel like you've got this thing inside of you and this is what you're supposed to do, don't ever stop following that thing, because there's something in there that is, I don't know, an innate thing built in you. And that's kind of what I followed. And through all the rejection and people that said, you're not good enough, you suck, you could never do this in a million years, I didn't really take it personal, because, my dad was one of those, I'm a loser, I'm a zero, I'm a nobody. So I felt so much kind of rejection from him that rejection out here didn't do anything to me. I'm like, it's okay. It's just like, this is what I want to do. So I will stay the course, and eventually things manifest into the right time, the right people, the right everything kind of comes together, and just be ready for it. Like, study, do your thing, and be ready for it, because there will be a system in place when they do start shooting movies and shows, and people will get cast for it. So, don't stop following your dreams, and just do the whole social distancing and everything that we're supposed to until they come up with a vaccine or a way to deal with it, or that we have to deal with it in society. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm one of those firm believers that just follow your dreams, put in a lot of hard work, do everything you can to be the best you can, as if you're going to be hired tomorrow, and just be ready for the moment, because you're as good as what you do, and people remember you for that. And it's like, what do you have to say in this world, and why? I always tell people, like, because a lot of people might want to get into it for the wrong reasons. Like, I just want to be famous, or I want to be on TV. But it's like, for me, that's not how it came into my realm. And so I felt like, there was something I needed to say and share and do. And it wasn't really about people ever watching me or anyone liking me. But I felt like, it was something that spoke through me that said, this is what you're going to do the rest of your life. So I followed it. And it wasn't anything I even planned on, but I kind of honored that. And no matter what anyone ever said about how, again, I wasn't good enough, or I couldn't do this in a million years, or all the people that call my agents or managers and say, this guy sucks. Why are you even sending him out, dude? This guy's the worst actor in the world. I kept thinking, nah. I mean, I've got severe dyslexia. I can't do cold readings. I can understand where, either the writing might suck and I'm not good at that kind of writing, or I couldn't really read the stuff. But either way, I thought eventually the right kind of writing and energy would come into my realm. And I work on my dyslexia, which was severe at the time. And I could read better. And eventually it all came together where it popped. And when it popped, it was almost like something told me it's time. And when it said it's time, within 3 months, my whole life changed. And then 23 years later, it's been like one of the most, magical carpet rides I could imagine.
Yeah. And very inspiring stuff, Kenny. That's awesome. And like you say there too, with the corona, it's almost sad now. We're all watching, a lot of people watching Netflix and Hulu now at home, and it's like you're watching all these shows where everyone's going out, they're together, they're at restaurants and bars. They're like, man, that looks nice. Like, it wasn't that long ago we were doing it,
Right. I know. And I'm like, is that fake now? Is that never going to happen again? It freaks me out even. I'm like, my God, like, this is all brand new for everybody, man. It's like,
yeah, it is. And what about as far as yourself here now? I know that this has got everything kind of on hold, but what kind of goals or plans do you have here for yourself for the future?
There's The Tempest. Somebody like rewrote The Tempest into a modern day trippy kind of interpretation. So that movie, I've worked with these filmmakers, done a couple of films. They want to do that. There's another guy that has a 3-picture deal with Universal, and he wants me to be the lead in one of them. Then there's an R.L. Stine, adaptation from a book that they're writing into a movie that they want me to play one of the lead characters in that. And then there's another. There's things coming up, but then I start to think like we're going to see how many are greenlit now because of what's going on. So, depending on my shooting schedule with SWAT, because that usually takes like 9 months out of the year. So to fit that space into where I could shoot a film is usually really difficult, So, I try at the same time to just get my daughter ready. And there's a lot of people that have actually asked my daughter to be in films. So if those go, we kind of read those and get ready for that too, So there's always stuff going on. But what transpires from it is always a different story because everybody could be gung-ho like it's going to happen, got all these people attached to it, blah, blah, blah. And then it just kind of falls through and goes away. So until it happens, we'll see.
Yeah, right on with that. Last thing I'm going to hit you with here, Kenny, I love to ask all the dads that I get on the podcast, what type of advice do you have for the new dad or for that about-to-be father who's out there listening?
I just say enjoy the experience, try to just give this unconditional love. I mean, for me, I think everybody's wired differently. So you don't know how you're going to react till actually your child comes out. But to me, it's, it's such a gift to even have the opportunity to be a dad, and to have a child come into the world where you get to actually be a part of raising a child. Because like, when you leave the hospital and then you actually come home and walk through the front door with this little being that you're like, oh my God, like how are we going to do this? I mean, that's just an amazing, I don't know, man. I mean, it's an amazing thing that you can't even prepare for, but just kind of go with it and enjoy it. And, again, have, I just had a lot of compassion and love and kind of empathy and openness to the whole thing. And so for me, it was like a kid at Christmas getting toys for the first time. You know what I mean? It was just a kind of amazing experience. So that's it. Even changing diapers was awesome for me. And, the cry for me, the first time my daughter cried, it was music to my ears, and prior to that, when I'd hear little kids cry, I'd be like, oh, what's wrong with this kid? But when my own child cried, I fell in love with the cry. And every time I hear her cry on a plane or wherever, I actually fall in love with all the children around. Like I realize what a gift it is that we get to bring somebody into the world. And so, again, you're molding that child to become the best they could be and hopefully be a positive influence in life eventually. So just give. I'm always like, I love to give anyway. So it's easy for me. For whatever reason, I just love to give and I never expect anything in return. So, yeah.
Yeah, very well said. I love the message, Kenny. It's been an honor for me. I got to say, you're a first-class father all the way, and thank you so much for giving me a few minutes of your time here on First Class Fatherhood.
Oh, dude, I love it. I appreciate it. You're awesome.